Hi everyone, and welcome to another intro video for Dr. Lehman's classes. This is a little bit of an introduction on the study of Native American civilization. And my primary target here is a World Civ before 1500 audience, but we could apply this in several different classes. So I wanted to record this because if you YouTube or do a lot of other searches on Native American cultures, you can find some pretty good written documents and academic material. But if you look at documentaries and videos, what you'll find far too often is an hour-and-a-half documentary that spends way too much time studying the flora and fauna of the Americas and European encounters with the Americas, but not actually talking about Native Americans in any detail. Now, part of that is a lack of source material. We're largely dealing with the exception of some stuff in the Inca Empire and later North American cultures with a lack of written sources. However, there's extensive archaeological material, some of which we can understand and some of which is much more challenging. Say some of the large monoliths from the Olmec civilization are kind of more famous, large stone heads, and some of the mound building cultures in the Mississippi River Valley, that sort of thing. But there's a lot of stuff out there, and one thing that we know, this is where kind of the introduction gets into play, is that there were hundreds of Native American cultures, just like there were in Africa and Europe and Asia, anywhere else. And they were heavily determined in terms of what their religion looked like and their language sounded like and their vocabulary and everything else by things like geography, climate, and whatever the lived experience of those particular people happen to be. And so you might have a group like the Native Americans of the Northwest in what's today, say, Washington State in Oregon, that's heavily focused on the sea, that builds certain structures that emphasize community and the practice of gift giving as a sign of pride and status because there was relative abundance. Or you could go to, say, the Inca people of Peru, and you look at the building of large structures in the mountains where a lot of creative steppe agriculture takes place. You go to the Mississippi River Valley, where Memphis is and where I happen to live, where you see throughout time changes based upon available technology. So, stone and bone tools become replaced by more specialized materials as agriculture develops. The use of wood to build permanent structures and boats creates both trade and reflects a commitment to farming and agriculture, whereas maybe other parts of the area that didn't support agriculture as well would still rely largely on hunting and gathering, maybe supplemented by some agriculture seasonally. And so everything changes dramatically depending on where you go. You see extremely advanced political organization in the Northeast. So in, say, the land occupied by the Iroquois, who were very influential in the founding of the United States because the Iroquois were not actually a single tribe, but a confederation of many different tribes like the Mohawk and the Oneida, who came together initially to deal with political questions in the area, but also in response to Europeans later on. Each of these groups would be impacted distinctly by encounters with Europeans, but I want to stick to before 1500 here. We do see some commonalities here. Religious traditions are heavily geared towards study of the moon and the stars, though that's pretty much everywhere. You see some structures that are similar in other parts of the world, for example in Central America, and to a lesser extent in North and South America, structures that resemble the pyramids and ziggurats of North Africa and the Middle East. These are civilizations based on hunting and gathering and eventually agriculture. So if you're taking Civ 1, it's really a familiar story, but there's a massive amount of variety. The peoples of the Great Plains versus the Pueblo of the Southwest in the United States build very different structures. Stone structures and mountainsides versus the Plains Indians being very migratory, this kind of thing. And so you don't want to underestimate, just because there's some lack of written sources, exactly how diverse and complex these societies were. And we can learn a lot about them, despite that lack of written sources, either by later encounters when writing was available, or through a great deal of archaeology. Stone and bone, which were the primary materials used for tools along with wood, last a long time in their original form. We can study settlement and migration patterns, where food, water, trade, all this sort of stuff. And so the world of Central and South America gets a lot of emphasis when you're looking at pre-1500. The Mayans are fascinating. The Aztecs are compelling. The Inca are almost miraculous in their ability to settle in the Andes mountain range. But North America is just as marvelous. And in many ways, the Native American diversity in North America is a harbinger of the current diversity of geography, of economy, and of humans in the United States. Thank you very much.